Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliot Manning, Managing Director of Cayman Recruitment. We are a rec-to-rec business that focuses on the UK and US. On today's episode, I've got a business who have just or about to open their doors up. Jack, that right? In
That
the
is right
US,
indeed.
I'll let
Yep.
you do the introduction.
So Hunter Healthcare. I'm the partner and one of the managing directors. We've been around for the last 12 years, focusing on healthcare and about to take the leap across the pond into the US.
First question is why? Why is this
Question.
happening?
Well, firstly, just going to say thank you for having me on.
Pleasure.
It's an interesting part of our journey. So we've been around obviously for quite a long time. We've been a market leader in the UK, and I think we've put a lot of groundwork into getting into a position where we would want to take the jump and do it in the right way. I think when I think about businesses, I think about the concept of, almost like when you bring up children, you've got your roots and then you've got your wings.
Yeah.
And I think the last sort of 10 years for us has been about putting those roots down and getting the foundations of the business right. Before trying to give it wings and take it across the pond and internationally. And I think the main reason for that is, and I think everyone knows in the US, is the kind of holy grail of things in terms of the size, scale, and scope, and everything else that goes along with it. And there's huge opportunity and upside if we get it right. But I also think, being a UK business, there's something nice about the idea of showing the US how it's done and showing the US how it's done properly. I think obviously as an industry in the UK, it's very much, it's incredibly mature. I think it's, quote me on this, but I think it's the original kind of recruitment market. So for us to be able to take it over there and take it to the next level, just feels like a really natural choice and natural synergy as we try and scale the business. So
did the clients, so like interesting for me is like, how did it come about? Did the clients start requesting help and support in the US? Did you notice that the clients had operations in the US? Like, where did it come to fruition? Because I when I set Cayman up, is because a lot of our clients in the UK were over there, and it naturally made sense. Plus, it was always genuinely a dream and a passion of mine to do that. What happened with you guys?
So I suppose going back to the start, Hunter was set up there was a frustration, I think, in terms of recruitment in seeing bad practice and seeing things in terms of not doing it right or not doing it with a kind of relationship and quality driven model in mind. We always had the aspiration and the notion of, can we take this global? And I think that was always in the forefront of the back of our mind. But like everything that we've done, it has been organic. So the kind of the launch pad, I should say, for our US business is going to be our life sciences practice. And that has been driven purely by the client base that we've got in the UK and Europe, asking us, look, can you help us in the US? And of course we can. We were deliberately measured in terms of taking on biting off more than we could chew in the first instance. So there was a lot of business that we turned down in the first instance because of that, because we wanted to get the platform right and make sure that we could support those clients in the right way. And that's been probably an 18-month, 2-year journey to get that right. So we're now in a position where we're transacting about 1.2, 1.3 million pounds worth of business in the US. And obviously we're yet to formally launch our office, which will be as of next month. So it's taken that time to kind of get that foundation right. But it's all been organic. It's been very much a pull from the clients.
Did you guys target yourselves as a business to be like, okay, right, once we've hit this amount of revenue, we're going to go? Or did it just kind of get to a point of like, we're doing enough business, so let's just go over there? Like, how did you kind of manage that?
It's a really good question. And I think ultimately it comes down to the people. We're a people business, as recruitment companies are. We wanted to get the right people in the door with the right training and the right level of aspiration and ambition that we knew that we could go over there and make a success of it. And that obviously takes time. So that was the key fundamental flipping point for us, was when, right, we've got a really solid team around us. We've got a great management team. We've got a training program that's coming along behind that for people that are new to the industry. Now is the time where we can flip the switch. And as I say, we've been doing incredibly well in the UK. I think revenues this year probably circa 60 million. And we always wanted to get to that kind of point with the right people before doing it, because we felt otherwise we can't really make a proper dent in it, and we'd just be scratching the surface. But I appreciate that when we go over there, equally, it's going to take a lot of time to establish in the same way. So,
Absolutely. You chose a location of it being East Coast, Boston. You know, a lot of businesses in your market choose different locations. You know, when I see life sciences, it's usually, you know, North Carolina, maybe Miami. Boston's been up there as well. Where and why did you select that location?
again, another really good question. And I think I think when you look at the US and you look at the population of the UK and you look at the states in the US, I kind of use the analogy of if there was a if there's a pot of gold in Milwaukee and there's a pot of gold in New York and you're one person, you can only pick up so much. So in some respects, it doesn't really matter. The opportunity is everywhere in the US, but at the same time, we wanted to create a company where we had a genuine cultural presence.
Yeah,
And I feel like New York, Boston, the East Coast feels like a natural point to do that because there's a synergy culturally between the UK and Boston. Equally, as we're going to do it on a life sciences perspective in the first instance, there's such a huge pool there with Harvard, MIT, Kendall Square, Cambridge. All of those things link up really nicely as that, as that's the hub, if you like,
yeah,
for the East Coast. It's obviously slightly cheaper than New York as well, which helps.
yeah,
And it just feels like a really nice launch pad to take the business to and go from. And that won't be the end of it. Of course, we've got aspirations to have an office on the West Coast, in Texas as well and beyond. But for the first point of call, and I think again, when I think about it from a practical perspective, it makes sense to do it on the East Coast as well because the time difference as well as the cultural side. It's going to be difficult to make that transition, trying to manage some aspects of it remotely and also then get back and forth. It's going to be a lot more difficult to do on the West Coast from London. So,
yeah. Fun.
um, so it was practical as well as kind of cultural for us as well.
Did you guys feel the need to go over there to explore that location physically to understand, you know, the culture, you know, the surroundings of where you want to be before you did it, or did you just go for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a senior management team and myself and Kath that are fundamentally leading the expansion to the US, we've been over there a couple of times. I think Kath has obviously been there a number of times before because life sciences has been her market for the last 10, 15 years. So knows the area well anyway. We did have an idea of where we wanted to pitch ourselves and be in that Cambridge area. But it would have been disingenuous of us to make that decision and send people over there and try and hire into it without actually having experienced it ourselves. And we're a business that likes to to walk the walk as well as just talk the talk as well. So for us, that was really important. So yeah, we definitely did that, and I'm heading back out there in a couple of weeks' time again just to firm up some of the details with the office. So
Fantastic. Have
yeah.
you faced any challenges since inception of getting this up and running, and areas of the setup that you thought, do you know what, we didn't think about that, or we should have done this better?
Yeah, I mean it's incredible how different it's been in terms of the setup in the US versus the UK, and everyone talks about it. Each state's got their own jurisdictions, policies, laws, etc., tax. And I think when you start to look at it, you go through that period of kind of a bit of naivety maybe, and feeling like this is actually going to be easier. Then you realise the differences and actually how much there is to get involved. And I remember having a conversation with you a few months back, and you say, look, you probably need to take this a bit more seriously and think about these things. And
Yeah.
that kind of was a bit of an eye-opening moment for me where we realised kind of the cycle that you need to go through, the account setup, the process, the legalities of it. Even getting a US and East Coast specific attorney as well was really important. But I think having the right team around you and having a bit of a support network and not having one person try and lead on all of that's been really key. So what's been successful for us is setting up a project team that sits down for a 2-hour period every week at the same time and has those milestones mapped out with a really solid Gantt chart. So people are taking on responsibility for each aspect of the launch and it's not falling to one person. So that's been invaluable for us. But certainly, yeah, I think it's been, when you first look at it, it can feel quite overwhelming. When you actually go through it, it kind of starts to make sense. And actually, it's just a lot of little things that aren't necessarily too in depth or too technical when you start to piece it all together. But as I say, we're at the start of that journey, and I'm sure there'll be other challenges and bends in the road as we go. So, yeah.
Do you have any words of wisdom and advice for other businesses that are looking to get themselves established in the US? You know, things that, you know, you can say to them, look, you know, before you go and do X, Y, and Z, make sure you think about doing this or doing that. Anything that you can suggest that has been really helpful to you, even if it's about, like, you know, the talent that you brought in, the office space, you know, the identity of the business in the US.
I think, and it's a cliche, but I think it's true, is you have to start with the end in mind. And I think you have to have a really solid, coherent vision that people can buy into. Because if you're coming from another country, if it's the UK, that natural understanding, if you're established there already, people are going to buy into that culture. But you need to be really coherent in terms of how that translates through to an international market. And I see it all too often where people just launch in the US because they think that, you know, it's the land of milk and honey and there's just unlimited upside. And of course, there is an aspect of that. But for us, what's been really important, and I think I challenge other recruitment businesses to think in the same way, is what can you do to genuinely add value to the industry beyond just another arm and another expansion to the business. So for us, the importance is we want to be the global healthcare recruitment partner of choice. And we don't just want to let that sit with a traditional recruitment model. We want to bring in tech, we want to bring in AI, we want to look at other offshoots, we want to look at RPO, statement of work, setting up a consultancy business that's genuinely standalone to the recruitment offering and create an ecosystem that's worth more than the sum of its parts. Now that's our vision, and that's what we've set out. And the US is simply a stepping stone to getting there. So I think having that vision and being really clear in terms of how you do it is so important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. What's Jack, from a business perspective, you know, what's different about recruiting in the US clients, US candidates? I know the fees, and everyone knows the fees are obviously substantially bigger. You know, what's different for you as a recruitment market to the UK or Europe that you're used to?
So it's, I mean, the scale in itself is quite overwhelming. And you know, I think we're still really scoping the extent of the opportunity and how we actually tackle that.
Yeah.
But I think that the cultural nuances, even from East Coast to West Coast, is incredibly different.
Yeah,
So
for
from
sure.
what I've found, you know, East Coast are a lot more straight talking. They'll tell it to your face. If they don't agree with something, they'll tell you up front, and you know where you stand. West Coast is probably the opposite. Absolutely delightful to your face. You know, yeah, we're going to do a deal. We're going to put this in place. We're going to work together on this, and
Yeah.
then it falls flat. And you know, I've not even got to the Midwest and the South yet. So there's fundamentally there's huge cultural differences, as similar as there is in part, and I think that in itself is a challenge, and something that you kind of need to be mindful of when you're working through things. That's probably the big one. Beyond that, you've got the obvious of, you know, actually how you scale it properly with the remote working element. You know, it's very clear that in the US, just simply due to the size of it, it's not always possible to have people on site. It's possible to outsource things to cheaper states. It's there's more of a need for travel, and actually how you set yourself up and configure your back office to accommodate that is going to be fundamental to the success in terms of how you move forward with it. And also, obviously, you add a pandemic on top of that, and
Yeah, of
see the
course.
implications of that. That's changed the landscape again. It adds a different dynamic, which makes it exciting, right? But at the same time, it's new territory, not just from a business expansion perspective, but also how you fit in the new way of working in the new world that we've got now.
Yeah, I mean, just like I'm on a call with you doing this, and my neighbours decided to mow their front garden right next door, and all I can hear is a lawnmower. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I'm working from home, so I expect these natural changes of everything. So yeah, it just coincides with what you just said about the differences of the world we work in now.
Yeah.
But look, Jack, you know, from a final standpoint, what do you have planned for the business now? What's the scope for the rest of 2022? You're about to launch and, you know, officially get that opened up. What's do you have, or, you know, an insight that you can share on the growth and the plans now?
Yeah. So I think for us, what's really important is not losing sight of what's got us to the US, is consolidating the business that we've got in the UK. So we're very fortunate now in that, you know, we're the market leader in the public sector, predominantly in the NHS, but also increasingly in the private sector. that's really important. We don't lose sight of that and the people that have got us to where we are today. But there's a huge year planned for everyone in the business from a US perspective, but also beyond that as well. So we'll be launching on the East Coast. I'd expect that we'd have probably in terms of headcount anywhere from sort of 20 to 30 people over the next 12 to 18 months. And that might be significantly more than that, provided that we do it in the right way, before then looking at the West Coast, probably the year after that. So for us, it's consolidating what we've got, making that launch successful, not biting off more than we can chew, but also really giving us a good platform so that then next year we can take it to the next level again, start to conquer the West Coast, and then join it up in the middle. Outside of that, as I said, our ambitions are global. It's not limited to the US. We've already got a strategic board that are looking at opportunities outside of the US and Europe and Middle East and Singapore, probably beyond that, as well as looking at other offshoots to the business that are going to support the core Hunter brand. So I mentioned, a separate consulting business, as well as an RPO model and everything else that links all of that ecosystem up. So
Fantastic.
Incredibly exciting time, hopefully, and the next 12 months are going to be
busy, exciting. There's a lot there. And you're going back out there, you said, shortly on
3 weeks. Yeah. So heading back out there, and I think it's going to have to get out there probably at least once a month in the first instance, just to make sure that we've landed well, we're doing things in the right way. So yeah.
What do you like out, about being in the US? Like when you're over in the States, how do you feel? And
barbecue.
Yeah, you love a big barbecue. What's it
I'm
like in Boston?
I'm a real sucker for barbecue, and
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's depending where you are, absolutely. I love the food over there, and I know a lot of people are not a fan, but yeah, any kind of barbecue or outdoor cooking, I'm all in for. So yeah, absolutely love it. And also, I mean, any country that's got that much sport, what's not to like?
So once a month that's the plan to get out there?
I think so in the first instance. That could probably change and flex, and I've had to have that kind of that ability.
Would you live out there?
It's a conversation I've had probably with my wife, not so keen. I think having 2 kids now back home and soon to be in school as well. So I think that time sadly for me has probably slipped by, but we've given the opportunity to a couple of lucky people to go over there and do our bidding for us in the first instance on that.
I thought about it so many times to get out there, and I've always wanted to for the business, but the partner's not too keen as I am with the kids, and ultimately, I mean, I get excited by going over there every couple of months, and I think that does it for me, and I put that time into it, and I think and this is good for other business owners. You don't have to necessarily live there and be there to make it successful if you've got a good team. There's always going to be a team of people out there that might not work, but if you can put once a month in, every couple of months, and you can physically get yourself over there, then you've got the ability to still push it. Okay, no, that'd be interesting, mate.
I think for us, I think the key thing is, we're ultimately a values-driven business, and one of the key values that we've got is choice and how people create it, not just for candidates, but people internally. And I'm a big believer in that. And I think, as I said, I think that moment for me to move to the US has gone, but I can still create choice in my career and my personal life, and it's the same for everyone in the business. It's really important, and having that ability to map your own journey, as it were.
All seems super exciting, mate. Incredible time, that you've had, and obviously exciting what you've got to come, very shortly with it all. I look forward for us to hopefully helping with that journey as a business, and giving you what you need to, from a growth perspective. But look, I wish you guys all the best of luck with it. If anyone that's in life sciences, anyone that's in recruitment, even from a Boston perspective, wants to talk to you, Jack, then I'll introduce you through LinkedIn. If anyone wants to have a chat with me about anything, then reach out, let us know. But as the market is moving and as times are changing, the opportunity in the States is becoming far greater for everybody. And, it's a real hot spot right now, and a big subject and an area to be recruiting in. So, Jack, appreciate it. Thanks for making your time. And if there's anything I can help with in the future, you know where I am.
No, thank you very much for having me on. And thanks to the team as well. They've been super so far, and really excited to be partnering with you guys moving forward.
Pleasure. Look, lovely to speak with you. Thank you very much, and enjoy.
Yeah.